Are you ready for some more lady scientists? Here they come. This is from 101 Awesome Women Who Transformed Science. And I'm bringing them to you for Women's History Month. If you are able to get this book, that's phenomenal. It's a really great one to have in your collection. If it's not for you, then if you're not able to, then here it is, so you can hear it too, because I feel like this is really valuable information to see all of these women working in science, especially now. The first is Inés Enrica Julieta Mexica, and she was a botanist. She lived from 1870 to 1938. Inés Enrica Julieta Mexica was an American botanical collector and explorer. At the age of 51, she joined the University of California and studied botany. She had worked as a social worker for many years beforehand. Inés was so enthralled by her subject that she undertook a series of expeditions to collect plant specimens. She went to Mexico for 2 years and was hired to go to Alaska as well. Amazingly, she also adventured through the Amazon River in South America, covering huge distances by canoe. Over 13 years, Inés collected around 150,000 plant specimens, 500 of which were new species. 50 of these are named after her. So remember, if you haven't managed to do what you so dearly want to do yet, there's so many people who started late at life. Inés started at 51. You can still do it. This is Maud Lenora Menton, and she was a biochemist. She lived from 1879 to 1960. Maud Menton was a Canadian pioneer in the world of scientific research, trailblazing the way for other female scientists. She completed her medical degree in 1907 at the University of Toronto, then moved to New York to work in scientific research at the Rockefeller Institute. Maud is perhaps best known for her collaboration with Linor Michaelis. Their work led to the formulation of the Michaelis-Menten equation, which explained how enzymes behave. She went on to study cancer, earned a PhD in biochemistry, and professor of pathology at the University of Pittsburgh in 1918. She was conducted into the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame in 1998 for her enduring work. This is Emily Noether, a mathematician, and she lived from 1882 to 1935. She studied momentum theory. Emmy Noether is celebrated for being an incredibly creative German mathematician. Her studies defied discrimination against women, impressed Albert Einstein, and changed the way we look at algebra and physics. After a long fight for education and paid work, she discovered basic insights on symmetry and energy conservation that still underpin our understandings of the world. Tragically, in 1933, she lost her position as a university professor as Jewish citizens were removed from many job roles. She escaped to America, yet passed away shortly after. Einstein has been quoted as saying that, in the judgment of the most competent living mathematicians, Fraulein Noether was one of the most significant creative mathematical genius thus far produced since the higher education of women began. Johanna Westerdijk, a botanist. The first female professor in the Netherlands, Johanna Westerdijk, paved the way for other female science students to enter the upper realms of this male-dominated academic world. She studied the causes and effects of diseases in plants, as well as mycology, the study of fungi, earning her PhD in 1906 for her work on the regeneration of moss. Over her impressive career, she journeyed to and studied many different habitats, building up an enormous botanical collection and founding a world-renowned laboratory. Her work led to the discovery of a treatment for Dutch elm disease, a deadly disease for trees. But Johanna was vocal about women's rights and used her position to help improve the role of women in science by hiring female students to work in her lab as much as possible. This is Chica Kuroda. She was a chemist, and she lived from 1884 to 1968. Chica Kuroda, a Japanese chemist who specialized in natural pigments, has many accolades to her name. She was the first woman to receive a Bachelor of Science degree in Japan in 1916. and was the second woman in Japan to be awarded a doctorate in 1929. Chika was also the first woman to ever present to the country's chemical society, a huge step forward for women in science. Her influential work led to the discovery of a drug named Fruitin C, which blocks damage to the body caused by atoms called free radicals. She studied the pigments of vegetable skins, soybeans, sea urchin spines, Asiatic dayflowers, and even onions. And she found a chemical structure for a purple pigment. That was the one of her primary findings. The next is Olive Dennis, an engineer. In 1885 she lived from 1885 to 1957. Born in the United States, Olive Dennis was the first female member of the American Railway Engineering Association and the second to receive a degree in civil engineering from Cornell University in New York. She worked at the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, and from 1921, her role was to improve customer comfort for the passengers. Her brief was to make train journeys more appealing for women, and she did this excellently. Olive ensured that air conditioning was added to the carriages and even introduced reclinable seats and footrests. It was her suggestion that there should be staff on board the trains in case passengers needed assistance too. She is quoted as saying, "There is no reason that a woman can't be an engineer simply because no other woman has been one." The next person in this book is Janci Greta Schieringa, and she's a dentist, and I probably pronounced that wrong. Janci Greta Schieringa was one of the first people to be called a dentist. Previously, they were simply called tooth doctors. She passed her dentistry theory exams in 1909 and studied at Utrecht University, gaining her diploma in 1913. Born in the Netherlands, her long career significantly advanced the field of dental surgery that focused on jaws and face, making prosthetics for people who had become injured, ill, or been born with conditions such as cleft palates at birth. She also helped her patients learn to eat and speak again once they had received their prosthetic. At her clinic, Janci generously treated those who were unable to afford help from more expensive surgeons, gaining her wide recognition. This is Regina Flesarowa, a geologist, and she lived from 1888 to 1969. Born in Poland, Regina Flesarowa is famed for her work as a geologist and geographer, publishing many works on Poland's landscape, including a 5-volume history. She was also the first Polish woman to receive a PhD in natural sciences, later becoming both librarian for the National Geological Institute in Warsaw and a senator. During the Nazi occupation of Poland, she helped hide Jews and held secret meetings for librarians. Regina also worked fiercely for women's rights and was on the Council of Polish Women. After World War II, she worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and served on the City Council of Warsaw. Regina is still considered a pioneer in earth sciences in her home country. The next geologist is Inga Lehmann, and she lived from 1888 to 1993. It's a long life. Inga Lehmann was a Danish seismologist, a scientist who studies earthquakes and related phenomena. In the early 1900s, she proposed that the Earth has both a solid inner core and a molten outer core, a huge discovery that has changed the way that we understand the planet. Inga was born in Copenhagen and schooled at a co-educational facility, enjoying equal status with the male pupils that also attended. Despite ill health, she completed a degree in physical sciences and mathematics in 1918, spending some time at Cambridge University. In 1925, she became an assistant to Niels Erik Norlund, an esteemed mathematician, and established a seismological station in Copenhagen. Her career progressed, and in 1928, she was appointed as a head of department of seismology at the Geodetical Institute of Denmark. At the time, seismologists knew that seismic waves, or waves of energy that travel through the Earth, sometimes behaved unexpectedly. This led Inga to dive deeper into her observations, and by studying the seismic waves, caused by an earthquake in New Zealand in 1929, she came up with a remarkable theory. Inga saw that the primary waves, P waves, bounced off of something. She predicted that this meant that Earth's core was made of something solid. Previously, it was thought to be completely molten, but this would have allowed the waves to pass through easily and not change course. The scientist community commended her work, and in acknowledgement of her achievements, the American Geophysical Union created a medal in her name. Inga went on to make many more contributions to the understanding of the Earth's core, working all the way through to her late 90s. There's no doubt that Inga has influenced the world of science immeasurably. You should know how many incompetent men I had to compete with, in vain. This is the last one I'll give you in this batch. This is Alice Augusta Ball, and I think she's just an amazing scientist. She was a chemist, and she lived from 1892 to 1916. A truly remarkable woman in science, Alice Augusta Ball lived a tragically short but monumental life. She was the first African American to earn a master's degree in chemistry from the College of Hawaii and made her mark on medical history by creating a successful treatment for the disease known as leprosy. Ball's discovery was very beneficial to alleviating the pain that was sustained by patients, and for a Black woman to be able to achieve what she did and make advances in that area during that time is remarkable unto itself. James P. Harnish. As a child, Alice grew up in Seattle, Washington, to a family fascinated by photography. Her grandfather was one of the first to use a specific method known as daguerreotype, and she would have been exposed to some elements of chemistry from an early age. Her family temporarily moved to Hawaii in 1902 with the aim of improving her grandfather's health. Yet sadly, he passed away shortly after, and the family returned to Washington. Here, Alice showed great aptitude for science and earned degrees in both pharmacy and pharmaceutical chemistry. She then returned to Hawaii, where she became the first African American and woman to be awarded a master's degree in chemistry from the college. She focused her thesis on the properties of the kava root. It was after this that Alice began teaching and researching, aged just 23. She investigated the chemical properties of chalamondra oil, long used in leprosy treatments. The treatments had always had mixed results, yet Alice was able to isolate the ingredients that were most effective and turn them into an injectable medicine with a much higher success rate. Leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease, affects the nerve, skin, eyes, and inside the nose. The areas of the body affected lose the ability to feel touch or pain, and nerve damage can lead to paralysis of the feet and hands. So this discovery was groundbreaking. Alice's method was used until the 1940s, when a newer treatment was introduced, and that was antibiotics. Sadly, Alice was unable to publish her findings. While teaching, she suffered from chlorine poisoning, and she died at the age of 24. The college president continued her work and took all the credit, but fortunately, a brief mention in a later medical journal led to the Ball method being discovered. Today, she is celebrated for the incredible role she had to play in the progression of medicine.